Hello! My name is Pixie. I make videos about the art I make and the books I read. Today I'm doing hand lettering and talking about why I believe in the words I'm drawing. The supplies I'm using are from an art supply advent calendar from Pen Store, and it's divided into 4 themes. You can see the first theme in my previous video, and I'm also opening the supplies daily up until December 24th on Instagram and TikTok. Anyway, the second theme was lettering, which at first I was mildly excited about because I've tried to get into lettering before, but I made the mistake of thinking that meant that I had to do brush lettering or modern calligraphy, which doesn't really vibe with me as a person or the way my hands like to move, but I decided to at least look at it again in like the spirit of the challenge, you know. So I went on Pen Store's website and I found a post on their blog about lettering, and the person they talked to said 2 words that made it click for me: drawing letters. That's what hand lettering is, just drawing letters. And I love drawing, I love words. Obviously, I'm gonna love hand lettering. So this theme that I was feeling meh about turned into a bit of an obsession, and I've been having so much fun experimenting with different ways to draw letters, looking at word art and typefaces and stuff. I actually got so into doing this drawing that you'll see the lighting change in this video because I didn't want to stop when the sun went down. So I'm sorry about that. I also recently drew the revolutionary slogan for a free Palestine, Intifada until victory, and made some of the letters relevant symbols that are related to the history and culture of Palestine and the Palestinian struggle. Because as long as the letter is readable, you can pretty much do anything and form a word, so I'm very excited to explore this some more. And by the way, if you haven't heard that slogan before, I'm going to put a link in the description where you can learn about what it means and why we say it. So now let's talk about the words I'm drawing here. A better world is possible. Why am I sure of this? How can I be? This is a massive topic, but I'm going to touch on the most important points to my mind, and there will also be links down below where you can read more. I mean, firstly, it's necessary. In order to save the planet, we need a globally planned economy rather than this profit-driven capitalist chaos. We need a society formed around human need in order to eradicate problems like wars, poverty, disease, starvation, homelessness, and all forms of oppression. But it's also where development is heading. Like, if you look within one capitalist company, it is meticulously planned already, because that's what's most efficient. We also have this massive productive capacity that isn't being fully used, because the way capitalist production works, where workers produce more value in products than they get paid in wages, which means there will be more products than people can buy. And this productive capacity could be used to feed and house everyone, reduce working hours, give everyone clean water, all of the other necessities, medicines, etc. And this capacity for abundance is a precondition for socialism that already exists right now. And yes, we could do this in a sustainable way, again because of the profit motive. Sustainable solutions that exist aren't being used. And I'm sure if we put effort into it, we could come up with more sustainable solutions for things. Next, let's address human nature, quote unquote. Because you might say, but Pixie, humans are inherently greedy and selfish and prejudiced against those who are different from themselves, so it's biologically impossible to build an egalitarian society. But is greed and prejudice inherent, or are they adaptations for survival in this brutal system? Capitalism is driven by profit, as we've said, and a big part of that is competition. And that takes its form not just between capitalists for shares of the market, but also between workers for jobs and housing, etc., that are artificially scarce due to aforementioned profit. Like I said, we could easily, let everyone work shorter hours and house everyone and feed everyone, but profit gets in the way. And it's important and beneficial for capitalists that workers have prejudice against each other, whether it's based on race, sexuality, gender, or whatever it may be, because it keeps us fighting over crumbs instead of joining forces to take over the whole bakery. But, and this is a really important point, despite these incentives that exist to divide us, we see solidarity and unity within the conditions of capitalism. Look at the massive solidarity movement for Palestine all over the world, for example, or the Toronto carpenter who built free mini shelters for the homeless just because he could. And look at how poor people do their best to donate to each other's GoFundMes when the capitalist healthcare system fails them. And look at yourself. Do you not like being part of something that benefits others? Is that not fulfilling to you? Don't you help people around you if you can? Of course you do. As a social and interdependent species, I think it's far more quote-unquote natural for us to contribute to a community than it is to compete as isolated individuals. We need each other, and we see that coming through even in the rotten environment of capitalism. This isn't to romanticize the working class or deny that people can do awful things. They can and they do. My point is that human beings in general have a great capacity, a great potential for solidarity and cooperation, and I believe it comes out when it is allowed to and when it becomes necessary. Before the division of society into classes, humans lived in classless hunter-gatherer societies. There's archaeological evidence that women were not oppressed in these, and that disabled and chronically ill people were taken care of, despite how precarious and dangerous this type of life would likely have been, where you would be living hand to mouth with only just enough for the day. We have lived in a classless society, and we can do so again, but on a much higher level this time. Now you might say, that sounds nice, but socialism has been tried and failed. To that I respond, there are material reasons why the Soviet Union, China, or Cuba couldn't build socialism, even though they did achieve a lot of progress based on a planned economy. None of the crimes and flaws of those regimes mean that a different society is impossible. What they do show us is A, most importantly, that it's impossible to build socialism in one isolated country, and B, that a planned economy needs a workers' democracy, and C, that lack of resources is a basis for inequality. I also know it's possible because I take a long view of history. Transitioning from one mode of production to the next has never been a smooth process. Capitalism didn't spring fully formed from the head of the French Revolution like Athena from Zeus. Many gains were taken back by Napoleon Bonaparte's regime, which, not incidentally, gives us Marxists the term we use for Stalin and that type of regime, Bonapartism. The struggle for bourgeois democracy in France went back and forth for almost 100 years, and towards the end, the workers even took power for a short time in the Paris Commune in 1871. So history does not move in a straight line or in neatly divided stages. So this shows us very concretely that one or several failed attempts do not mean that the task is impossible. The task is big, yes, and complex, sure, but nevertheless absolutely necessary and definitely possible. The last reason for my optimism that I want to touch on is how the working class has shown time and time again in history its willingness to fight, an endless creativity and indomitable spirit. And revolutions that failed actually show this, as well as victorious ones. And I want to point out that a failed revolution is never the fault of the masses. It's usually the product of either a complete absence of any leadership that's able to focus and help direct and organize the struggle, like we saw in Sri Lanka pretty recently, or there is a leadership, but one that betrays the workers and saves capitalism, like in France in 1968. There are so many more examples that you could give of this, because the working class is going to move for revolution when it has had enough, regardless of whether a revolutionary leadership that's up to the task is ready or not. And preparing such a revolutionary leadership all over the world is what we do in the International Marxist Tendency, and I'm absolutely sure that we can do it no matter what difficulties we encounter. And if you want to fight for a better world, you should definitely join us. we need a better world, and I know it's possible, and that is a core part of my worldview. So that's why I chose this phrase to draw and want to share it with you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Check out the links down below for more details, and until next time, take care. Bye.